Apparition, Chapter 2. Everywhere you looked, you saw the headline. Every social media post, every news article, everything had blown up in Chaz's face. Ghost Hunter fake show, one news station reports. Chaz Coleman is a fraud, reads another. Breaking news, the world's most famous paranormal investigator, Chaz Coleman, has been faking his entire show. These so-called haunted locations are set in the middle of Hollywood. The news anchor states that it is the #1 news station in the world. Countless social media posts spread hatred and laugh at Chaz's behalf. His world is over. His fame and success would forever be tarnished because of this. A former showrunner exposes the show after being fired from the set by the hothead and narcissist Chaz Coleman, the reporter states on television. "Which employee of mine is doing this to me?" Chaz asked the boardroom full of producers of the show. "Well, who got fired most recently?" asked one of the producers. "Good point," Chaz responds. "If we think about who it is, maybe we can hire some government officials to declare they are psychotic, and everything they said was because he was hallucinating the show." The producer, who should look startled, just looks at him normal, as though this is the guy they deal with on a daily basis. Let me think. There was Ashley, Todd, Dane, Alex, Gerald, Todd again, glasses, bow tie, the guy with the pinhead and half a mustache. I mean, how about the most recent firings, says another producer. "Those are just the names from this morning," Chaz reiterates. "Don't forget about Chelsea," Chaz's new assistant says. "True, Chelsea. Thanks for reminding me, Trevor," says Chaz. "That's not my name, sir," says the assistant. Chaz spoke over his assistant without even caring about whatever else he had to say. The group agreed that there was no way that they were going to figure out which former employee was the narc, but they had a bigger issue on hand, and that was how to save the show. "What are our options? I'm not going back to my life of middle class living with my parents. I'm Chaz Coleman, for God's sake." The boardroom brainstorms ideas on how to fix the issue. "How about we add a disclaimer that says all the events are a recreation of what happened prior," the director suggests. "Our whole thing is we do real-life paranormal investigations. If we start doing recreations, no one's going to want to watch that. They want to see real demons," Chaz brings up, even though the rest of the boardroom knows everything on the show is already faked. "How about we go back to doing real investigations at real-life locations," says a producer. "Everyone started hating those because nothing was happening. Plus, I like sleeping in my own bed at night," Chaz responds angrily. Just as the boardroom was running out of ideas, out of the corner, Chaz's new assistant finally broke the silence. "What about a live stream in a haunted location?" says the assistant. "What about a live stream, Nolan?" asks Chaz. "My name's not Nolan, sir," the assistant reiterates. "We can do something in the area or close by, so you can even set up stuff that seems paranormal, or maybe we can even find a location scary enough we won't need to fake it. This way everyone will have no choice but to believe that it's real because it's live." "Guys, I think Ethan just got himself a raise," Chaz says with excitement. "My name's not Ethan, sir," the assistant repeats. "But if you really want to raise Hector, you're going to need to find the location where we're going to set all this up." "Yes, sir, and my name's not..." Never mind. The assistant agrees and gives up hope that his boss will ever know his real name. The boardroom applauds as the assistant runs off to start looking for the perfect location to pull off the live stream. "Guys, we are back. Now please excuse me, I'm off to my mansion. I'll see y'all later," Chaz says while exiting the room. On the drive to his house in the back of his limo, Chaz deals with the anxiety of not knowing what is about to happen. Will he be able to bounce back from all this backlash? Will he be able to make people think that he is legit once again? Chaz arrives at his mansion and slumps through the front door, the familiar creak of the hinges barely registering as he let his bag slip from his shoulders to the floor. The house was quiet, save from the soft clink of dishes coming from the kitchen. Normally, the warm smell of dinner or the sound of Rebecca's greeting would lift his spirits after a long day, but tonight, the silence was suffocating. He stepped in the living room and collapsed on the couch with a deep, exhausted sigh. The headlines from the day swirled in his mind, a cacophony of accusations and anger from people who once admired him. Fraud, liar, fake. He rubbed his temples, trying to stave off a headache that had been building since this morning. Chaz's wife Rebecca appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed tightly across her chest. She didn't rush to him like she used to. and that cut deeper than any article ever could have. Her expression wasn't angry, just disappointed, and somehow that hurt more. "Did you see it?" Her voice quiet, but laced with the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions. Chaz nodded, not looking up. "Yeah, I saw it." Rebecca took a deep breath, pushing off the doorway and stepping into the room, her footsteps soft but deliberate. "Paranormal fraud, Chaz Coleman, exposed," she said, the words hanging in the air like a curse. "It's everywhere. Social media, the news. People aren't just mad. Chaz, they feel like you lied to them, like you're a fraud." Chaz leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, hands clasped together as he stared at the floor. "I didn't think it would blow up like this," he muttered. "I mean, yeah, we faked the hauntings, but it's entertainment. That's what the people wanted, right?" Rebecca's arms dropped to her side, her face softening, but her voice remained firm. "They wanted the truth. They wanted you. And now it's like everything you built just crumbled." Chaz looked up, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. The weight of her disappointment was more than he could bear. "I didn't want this," he said, his voice cracking. "I didn't start this to trick people. I believed in it. I wanted to find something real, but the ratings went up, and the show took off, and it became about the show. The fans, the network, the money. It stopped being about the truth a long time ago." Rebecca took a seat across from him, her face softening with a mixture of sympathy and frustration. "And now you're paying the price, Chaz. This isn't just a PR nightmare. People trusted you. They followed your investigations because they believed you were revealing something bigger, something real. And now, I don't know. What does this mean for us?" Chaz felt his heart drop. He had been so focused on the fallout of the show, he hadn't even considered the toll that it was taking on his marriage, on Rebecca. Chaz loved his wife and never thought about her feelings in all of this. Chaz met Rebecca before the fame and fortune came in. She was perfect for him. He told her about the paranormal investigating and how it was failing, but she always encouraged him to keep going. She made him feel a way no one else ever could. Once he became famous, she stuck by his side. Although disagreed with the way the show was ran, Chaz always explained that he was doing it to give her the life that she truly deserved. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. But I don't know how to fix it. The damage is done. Everything's falling apart." Rebecca leaned forward, her voice softer now, but the words carried the weight of truth. "You don't have to fix everything tonight, but you have to be honest, with yourself, with the people who still care about you. You owe them that much, Chaz. They're not going to forgive you overnight, but maybe, if you own up to it, there's a chance to rebuild." Chaz stared at her, feeling the sting of the words sink in deep. Honest. That's one thing he hadn't been in a long time. He stood up and walked to the window, staring into the darkness, his reflection staring back at him. He barely recognized the man in the glass. "I don't even know who I am without the show," he said, more to himself than Rebecca. "Without the cameras, the script, what am I?" Rebecca stood and crossed the room, standing next to him by the window. She placed a hand on his arm, squeezing gently. "You're still you, Chaz. You don't need the show to define you. It's just a job. A job that's gotten out of control, yeah, but it doesn't have to be your whole life. Maybe it's time to figure out who you are without the lights and tricks, the real you." He turned to her, the weight of the words slowly sinking in. She wasn't angry, she wasn't leaving. She was here, with him, through it all. "Maybe you're right," he said, his voice shaky. "I just don't know where to start." Rebecca smiled faintly, her hand still resting on his arm. "Start with the truth, Chaz. The rest will follow." For the first time in a long time, Chaz felt a flicker of hope. It was faint and fragile, but it was there. He wasn't sure what the future held, whether his career could survive this, or if he could ever rebuild the trust that he had shattered. But maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward, a real way. Chaz started reminiscing on the days that he started out as a paranormal investigator. It wasn't the Hollywood sets and bright lights. It used to just be Chaz and his equipment. For the first few years, that's all it was. and the ratings were low because of it. He had spent years chasing shadows, literally. His passion for the paranormal had started in his teenage years, but his career as a paranormal investigator had been nothing but dead ends and frustration and empty rooms. Every investigation ended the same way, with him packing up his equipment after hours of fruitless wandering through old houses and abandoned buildings, only to go home with nothing more than cold spots and creaking floors captured on tape. Constantly having a show canceled and picked up by another network willing to give him a chance because they loved him and his love for the paranormal. They loved how truthful it was. It was a sigh of fresh air that television had needed. However, the viewership disagreed. They all loved the idea of real ghost hunts, but when the ghosts never seemed to be home when Chaz was there, the ratings were just as vacant. He had nearly given up. After all, how long could a man keep chasing ghosts that refused to appear? But something kept him going. Maybe it was the childhood fascination with ghost stories, or the lingering hope that one day he'd find something truly unexplainable. Whatever it was, Chaz was determined to give it one more shot before walking away from the world of the paranormal investigations for good. It was late October when he got a lead on an old abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town. A place with a dark history, whispered about in local legends. It had once housed the mentally ill in the late 1800s. But after several mysterious deaths and claims of hauntings, the place had been shut down for good. No one stepped foot inside for decades. It seemed like just another dead end to Chaz, but he was desperate. With his usual gear in tow, an old camcorder, a thermal camera, and a handful of cheap audio recorders, he made his way to the asylum. The building loomed in the distance, its silhouette jagged against the night sky. Broken windows stared like empty eyes, and vines had long since claimed the crumbling brick walls. As he stepped inside, the air immediately felt wrong. Heavy, like it was pushing down on him. The floors groaned beneath his boots, and the chill air was more than just an autumn breeze. Something was off about this place. He set up his camera, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline mixed with dread that came before every investigation. But he had no expectations. After years of disappointment, he had trained himself not to hope. The first few hours were uneventful. He walked the decaying halls, filmed empty rooms, and called out to the spirits in quiet, sterile air. Nothing. Not even a knock in response. He began to feel the weight of the disappointment in his chest, but then something changed. Chaz was standing in what used to be the main ward, his camera aimed at a row of rustled broken beds, when he heard it. A faint creak behind him. He whipped around, the camera still rolling, but he saw nothing. His heart pounded, but he tried to stay calm. This could be it. He called out, his voice steady, despite the growing tension in his gut. "Is anyone here with me?" he asked, moving his camera slowly across the room. "If you're here, give me a sign." The silence dragged on for what felt like forever. He was about to lower his camera when suddenly, the door at the far end of the room creaked open, its rusted hinges groaning under strain. Chaz froze. This was no wind, no trick of the light. He zoomed in on the door, watching as it continued to swing open, stopping halfway as if something unseen had pushed it. "That's good," Chaz whispered to the camera. "Give me more." His breath was quickening now, the excitement bubbling up inside him. He could feel it. The energy in the room had shifted. He moved cautiously towards the door, every step deliberate, trying not to make a sound. The hallway beyond was dark, but through the night vision lens, he could see a faint outline of something moving. Mist. It hovered just above the ground, slowly drifting towards him like a living thing. Chaz swallowed hard, his mouth dry. He'd never seen anything like this before. His camera captured everything, the mist swirling, forming shapes that dissipated as soon as they appeared. As they edged further down the hallway, the mist parted, revealing something far more unsettling. There, at the end of the hall, stood a figure, blurred and indistinct, but unmistakably human-shaped. It didn't move at first. It just stood there, watching. Chaz's hand shook as he zoomed in, the figure becoming clearer in the green glow of night vision. It was a man, or what used to be a man, its features barely visible, like a faded memory, but its eyes, those cold, empty eyes, locked onto Chaz, sending a shiver down his spine. "Who are you?" Chaz stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The figure tilted its head, as if considering him, and then next, It moved. Not walked. Moved. One moment it was at the end of the hall, the next it was closer, almost hovering. Its face growing clearer, Chaz's breath caught in his throat, fear clawing at his chest. Then, it smiled. Chaz didn't think. Instincts took over. He bolted, running as fast as he could back through the decaying halls, his camera still clutched in his hand. He could hear the faint laughter of the thing echoing behind him, chasing him out of the building. He didn't stop until he was back outside, gasping for breath under the cold night sky. It took him hours to calm down enough to review the footage. When he finally did, his hand shook as he watched the evidence play out on the tiny screen. The door opening, the mist floating down the hall, and that figure, the blurry apparition, moving closer and closer until it almost filled the frame. He had done it. He had captured proof. The footage went viral overnight. Paranormal enthusiasts hailed it the most compelling evidence of the supernatural ever recorded. News outlets picked it up, and Chaz's name became synonymous with the paranormal investigations. Overnight, he went from struggling, unknown investigator to the face of the supernatural world. His shows were booked. His face was on every paranormal documentary. His name was everywhere. For the first time, he felt like he had found his place in this world. He was finally where he had always dreamed of being. However, the investigations began going back to their old ways. Hours of nothingness, other than an old building and some hopeful guy walking around in the anticipation of catching another ghost. A few months after the video went viral, things started cooling off. Chaz's phone wasn't getting dinged every 3 seconds. His name wasn't on TV anymore, and the viewership fell off, causing the stress and anxiety for Chaz to provide for him and his wife to come back. This is when one of the producers at the network came up with the idea to start beginning to stage the investigations. Give the people what they want, viral clips, and proof of the paranormal. After refusing time and time again, with the breath of the network threatening to cancel the show once again, Chaz gave in. From that point on, business was booming. Until now. There was always the thought of what would happen if he were caught, but Chaz never thought that he would ever have to figure that one out, and now he is paying the repercussions. A few weeks had passed since the incident, and still all that was on the minds of the media was how Chaz Coleman was a fraud. The episode that most recently was shot aired as the season finale, and Chaz feared it would likely be the series finale at this point. After the show, Chaz turns his TV off and heads to bed with his wife, but then his phone rings. It was his assistant. "Mr. Coleman, I found it," says the assistant. "What'd you find, Anthony?" Chaz responds. "That's not my name, sir, but I found the perfect location for the live stream. This place is creepy. It will give everyone the spooky vibes we are looking for. You may even catch something in here," the assistant says with excitement. A few days later, it was set. Chaz Coleman's live stream ghost hunt was on.